There are about 107 million gun owners in the United States, and we're putting them against 4 professional armies. Some of the largest forces on Earth, all of them invading America. In this video, we go full sandbox to keep things simple. 100% of gun owners get involved, organized into basic local militia groups. They bring everything they legally own, anything from pistols, AR-15s, 50 cal shotguns, and hunting rifles, to night vision, thermal optics, body armor, and tens of billions of rounds of ammunition. We're also counting privately owned military hardware, demilitarized jets, surplus tanks, helicopters, anything that can help them in the fight. No US government, no military. Let's go. Korea, 500,000 troops. Per soldier, South Korea is the best equipped army here, and it isn't close. Their main battle tank, the K2 Black Panther, uses radar to shoot accurately while moving at full speed. K9 Thunder batteries, artillery guns mounted to tank tracks, drop 3 shells 25 miles out in about 15 seconds. Their F-35s have practiced flying off highway strips in Finland, so cratering runways wouldn't ground them. That's all really nice, but you have to get to the US somehow. Coming from Korea, you're landing on the West Coast, and South Korea's entire amphibious fleet is 2 ships, Dokdo and Murado, plus 4 landing craft. The big 2 carry 720 Marines and 6 tanks each. Add everything up, and the first wave hitting a California beach is around 3,000 men and 20 tanks, out of 500,000. Everyone else comes by merchant ship. Trouble is, a container ship can't unload onto sand. It needs a gantry crane, one of those 200-foot machines that lifts containers off a hull. So the real first objective isn't a city. It's Long Beach or Oakland, with the cranes still working. And a gantry crane is an unarmored machine standing out in the open, with hydraulic lines and electrical runs you can see from the parking lot. A 50 cal BMG rifle fires a round about the size of a Sharpie, is legal in 49 states, and hits past a mile. One guy with a truck, a spotter, and a pack of Coors Light shuts a terminal down in an afternoon. And say some units do get ashore. That's when the real nightmare starts. Everything they need, fuel, ammo, food, spare parts, gets hauled inland by convoy, and those convoys are easy targets. Chance of US gun owners winning, 85%. Turkey, 480,000 troops. Turkey has the freshest combat experience of anyone here. Syria, Libya, Iraq, and Nagorno-Karabakh, where TB2 drones tore up Armenian armor before the ground troops did much of anything. So let's do the drone math, assuming some units successfully land on American soil. A TB2 is a propeller-driven armed drone about the size of a small plane, and it carries 330 pounds across 4 hardpoints. That's 4 MAML munitions. Small laser-guided bombs, 48 pounds each. So 4 targets per flight, and only if every shot connects. Only about 355 TB2s exist worldwide, spread across 30-odd countries. Give them the dream scenario: every drone flying twice a day, every bomb hitting, nothing breaking down, unlimited resupply across the Atlantic, and you land near 1,000 kills a day. There are 107 million gun owners that we know of. That's 300 years of flying. The Akunja is the one to worry about. 9 times the payload, higher up, harder to touch. And Turkey has around 100. But Karabakh worked because Armenian air defense was Soviet junk and Armenian vehicles sat parked in rows. The moment TB2s ran into modern surface-to-air missiles in Ukraine, they stopped being the story inside a month. Americans have no solid air defense network, but they do have a drone industry. About 26.8 million Americans own a drone, and 480,000 hold commercial drone pilot certificates. And crop dusters haul 800 gallons and fly at 30 feet for a living. Nobody's shooting down in a Kunja with a $1,000 hobby quadcopter. What those drones do is watch roads, convoys, drone crews setting up in a field. And that crew is the target, because a TB2 still has to take off and land somewhere, which means a ship or a captured airfield with rifles pointed at it from a mile out. Chance of US gun owners winning, 77%. Russia, 1,500,000 troops. Russia brings something you can't buy: 4 years of the most drone-heavy fighting anyone has ever done. FPV drones are cheap racing quadcopters with an explosive strapped on, flown by an operator watching a live feed from the drone's nose. Russia is building over 7 million of them this year and already ships over 100,000 a month. The fiber optic ones can't be jammed at all. They unspool a hair-thin glass thread behind them, and Russian crews have stretched that past 30 miles. And here's what everyone forgets about Russia. They don't need a boat. Russia and the United States share a border. The Bering Strait is 51 miles across at its narrowest, and only about 100 feet deep. And sitting in the middle are 2 islands, 2.4 miles apart. Big Diomede is Russian, Little Diomede is American, population 77. In a hard winter, the strait freezes over, and people have walked it. So forget landing craft. Russia is the one army here that can put boots on American soil in a weekend. Then they look around. They're standing on the Seward Peninsula, the emptiest developed corner of the country. Nome has 72 miles of gravel road that dead ends at a village. No highway east, no rail. The only road to the lower 48 runs 1,400 miles through Canada. Russia has taken a state the size of Western Europe with no way out of it. And Alaska is the worst possible place to pick this fight. 64.5% of Alaskan households own a gun, the highest rate in the country. These are people who hunt moose in the dark at 40 below on their ground in weather that grounds drones and kills batteries. The rest of what Russia is good at stays home too. Their electronic warfare exists to jam GPS-guided weapons, and no militia has those. Their whole playbook is pounding a front line with artillery until it breaks. But there's no front line here. So why isn't this a blowout? 2 reasons. Russian drone crews have flown millions of these strikes for real. Most Americans have only watched them on YouTube. Knowing how a war works and having fought it are not the same thing. And Russia will keep sending men forward after losses that would collapse any Western government. They've already proven that. But still, chance of US gun owners winning? At least 71%. China, 2,035,000 troops. Let's forget the map of America turning red with yellow stars. Nobody wants to occupy 3.1 million square miles, and China wouldn't try. What China would really do is take a piece of the coast and keep it. First, nobody gets surprised. You can't hide a 6,000-mile invasion. Commercial satellites photograph the loading docks. Anyone can buy those pictures, and every ship at sea broadcasts where it is. Americans would watch this fleet come together for months. The crossing itself is free, 3 weeks of open Pacific with no US Navy in the water. Then the landing, and they don't storm a beach, because you can't feed an army across sand. They take a working port instead. Naval guns from offshore, stealth drones off the deck of the Type 076 Szechuan, helicopters overhead, 60,000 troops onto the docks. Nothing most civilians own is stopping that. And they wouldn't stop at one port. 2 million soldiers don't sit in a parking lot. They take the next port, then the airport, then push inland until they hit something worth stopping at. On the west coast, that something is the mountains. The Cascades and the Coast Ranges run straight down the map, and only a few roads cross them. So China doesn't need to defend a line hundreds of miles long, and they could end up owning a strip of American coastline with cities on it. But the coast doesn't grow its own food. The big farmland is inland, past the passes they're holding. So China is either shipping food to millions of American civilians across 6,000 miles of ocean, or it isn't, and a hungry city is not a quiet one. And all of it still comes off a boat, which is the problem because a loaded freighter tied up at a dock is 900 feet of steel with no armor and nowhere to go. A guy with a 50 cal a mile away isn't going to sink it. He doesn't need to. He punches holes in the fuel tanks, starts a fire, and drops anyone working out on the deck. Do that twice, and good luck finding a crew that wants to tie up there. Now add drones flying into the cranes and hunting rifles at 600 yards from a tree line. There are 15.2 million Americans who do that for fun, on ground they've known their whole lives. And pushing further inland just makes it worse. On the other side of those mountains is Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the emptiest land in America, with the most guns per household in the country. Every mile forward is more ground to hold. fewer people worth holding it for, and a longer walk back to the boats. It would simply cost China too much. They might hold a piece of the coast for a while, but Americans, with gear that stacks up against a lot of professional armies, would start pushing them back. Chance of US gun owners winning 57%. And if you want to see what happens when the US Navy fights history's largest navies, that video's right there. Thanks for watching.